There is something about heavy metal that makes it unique as a genre. You can clearly see the creative progression from early rock and roll to harder rock music. For example, the rhythms got heavier and distortion got more prominent, yet somehow metal set itself apart even further. By innovating its own aspects, creating its own conventions, and cultivating its own culture, a piece of metal music becomes its own medium, as different from other music as a sculpture is from a painting. Being a relatively new expressive form, metal music has the ability to enable completely new experiences and maybe explore some elements of emotion wholly untouched by any art that came before. Like the first amphibian to evolve freakish little legs that could emerge from the ocean, metal music has an element that lets it explore further in a certain direction, to dig deeper and then speak of what it found. There are some parts of the human experience that metal is better equipped to express than any other art form. If we can identify what those are, we can be closer to defining what metal music is. There would be value in a discussion of what sets metal apart musically, and that'll be mentioned here when relevant, but I want to interpret something more tangible. What's said in the lyrics? I'm going to be taking some examples of metal music that explore some common themes in metal and analyze what's being said by the lyrics, and then draw some conclusions about what defines metal music based on my observations. Obviously, great art can come from defying the conventions of a genre, but to find out what sets metal music apart, we can follow the trends. I've chosen case studies that are exemplars showcasing common themes in metal music, and after making my observations, I'll lay out what metal music is saying about itself, and be the intermediary through which the genre can define itself in its own words. Who wants to die? Hell yeah. Hand me that cool uniform destined for museums, and don't worry about it being too big for me, it's just because I lied about my age on the enlistment form. Finally, the good part. This boat's gonna take me to some faraway land, and I'll be handed a weapon with which to slaughter my fellow man. A simple, heroic purpose, and if I die, even better, that's even more noble. The romanticization of violence makes us feel powerful. Not only does it fulfill the base biological desire to dominate, but your society tells you that there's a way to live out this dream and be treated like a hero for it. Sadly, tiresome killjoy poets are there to remind us that war is not actually as fun as it sounds. Thankfully, we have other art that's come to save us. Come, says the metal musician, we will help you live out the fantasy of being a glorious killing machine, and you don't even need to risk your life. The most straightforward version of this message can be found in World War II propaganda, urging fresh recruits to enlist. No headphones or screens required, just a poster that puts up a simple message and says, join up and fight. Unfortunately, you might really die if you pay attention to this one, and your odds of survival aren't exactly printed on Lord Kitchener's moustache. Soldiers eventually realized that more people left for war than came home, and where you have realization, you have the real. Suddenly, sombre, mournful poems bemoaned man's inhumanity, trenchfoot, dismemberment, dying slowly in a crammed, filthy medical tent, and that might be the most accurate depiction you can make of a war. Now, what happened after World War II was an unprecedented change of events over the next few decades. A generation grew up with no memory of war on their doorstep. This generation created rock music. Then you combine those new elements with factors that seem to have been present forever across all cultures. That is, rebellious, angry youths being irreverent to the struggles of their elders. Finally, you had the urge to feel powerful and to live out that power vicariously in a fantasy story. When stories that glorify conflict are more present to you than the reality, it becomes easier to imagine the glory. And so, if you're a young creative pioneering the unprecedented style of music, why not pay homage to the bitter reality of war in the old poems, but injecting the youthful vigor that your new medium allows? There will be war, there will be horror, there will be death, and above all, there will be honor and glory. Like a good essay, The Trooper sets out its intentions with its first word. You'll take my life, but I'll take yours too. I will sacrifice myself. But in my final stand, I will destroy the enemy, making my end worthy. There is something darkly satisfying in this sentiment. Life, with its endless work and relationships, can be complicated and difficult, but a noble sacrifice gives you a purpose, then you don't need to ever consider anything after that, ever. When you start listening to this song, nothing else matters because we're all going to die great deaths before it's over. This is the ideal that the song shows you. But like a magician, the reality lies in what you're not looking at, the mutual destruction. This war may have winners and losers, but both sides are going to have lost immeasurably. The amount of squandered life will only be exceeded by the number of grieving parents, widows, and adorable family pets left with a hole in their lives larger than any bullet wound. In the song, we have a different reality. In The Trooper, we do not concern ourselves with emotional matters. Didn't you hear the second line of the song? You'll fire your musket, but I'll run you through. It's the same idea, but now we're in the age of muskets. That's right, back in the day when men could be men. No pansy drone pilots gunning down targets from the safety of a computer desk. No bombs dropped on civilians while far above the danger. This was real war. Swords, gunpowder, men charging towards each other, not to forget the majestic stallion we are riding. The guitars in the verse famously play a rhythm grouped in threes, mimicking the sounds of galloping as we close our distance towards the enemy. Make no mistake about the direction we are riding. After all, there's no turning back. You can't accuse the trooper of denying the inevitable fate of many soldiers. After all, these soldiers were charging to their certain deaths. You couldn't call the song sad either, not with its fast-driving tempo and melodic riffs. The trooper is not dishonest. It even includes the truth about the risk of death, but the honesty is spun in an empowering way. We feel no regret because to die is a soldier's duty, so naturally we can face the horror and be empowered by it. We will endure the war without a tear and die stoically on the battlefield as we must. The Trooper and songs like it are deliberately unreflective and unapologetic about it. It's a common theme of Maiden's songs like These Colours Don't Run and Aces High, and of other songs like the era like Motorhead's Bomber. A noticeable aspect of the lyrics that tie those songs together is the agency of the soldiers is never questioned. Why does he fight? Because he wants to. Whatever the violence is in aid of, it's the soldier's decision, and it's in the soldier's best interests as far as they know. That might be to get paid, it might be for the love of other people, often it's for the love of violence. The key is independence. The tone may turn unpleasant if it's implied that people's lives are being risked against their will, such as at the behest of a commanding officer. No, this is our war. It's cruel and unfair, but so are our lives, and we live them anyway. Those who enjoy fantasy stories know just what a thrill a fantasy can be. Anything you can imagine awaits beyond the majestic vistas of a fantasy world. In typical fantasy set to a medieval backdrop, fantastical races and magical creatures go on epic quests to destroy the evil that plagues the land. Often there are great journeys spanning the whole fantasy world. Often armies have grand battles. Often a hero emerges that completes a quest. What makes these tales so inaccessible to many people is that they lie in very long books, extremely long films, or ridiculously long video games. Well, fear not, because Dragonforce are here to squeeze these adventures down, to concentrate their essence so it can fit inside a song. Say thank you, Dragonforce, but never ask them to make a song that's shorter than 5 minutes. That would just be rude. Whenever anybody hears Dragonforce for the first time, I would guess that the first word that pops into their mind to make sense of what they're experiencing is fast. The drums and the guitar riffs speed along at inhuman pace, more rapid than the heartbeat pushed to a cardiac breaking point. The song setting itself apart from most other bands with its immediacy and consistency of its quick rhythms is essential to experiencing the song Through the Fire and Flames. From the opening riff, you're plunged into an extremely alert state, as the music's inherent sense of urgency primes you for action, like a dog barking at you, asking you to follow it. You know this song needs your attention right this second, but you can't tell what it wants. So, attention peaked, you hear the song progress, and just as you start to recognize some broad structural repetition that could help you familiarize your ears with the world you just entered, the whole band cuts out and the lyrics start, like a fanfare preceding a speech of a ceremonial ruler. In the flame of death's eternal reign, we ride towards the fight. And that's all the setup you're getting. We get some background. Things are generally not good in your world, so Dragonforce would like you to ride a horse with them and sort it out through violence. And the speech is directly addressing you, the listener, as part of the adventure. It's intentional. Gandalf has kicked down your door, tied you to a horse, and it won't stop galloping until you've slayed at least 3 dragons. From there, the lyrics to Through the Fire and the Flames look more like an abstract poem than a straightforward ballad of storytelling. It paints a pastiche of the scenario, never trying to establish context, but rather exploring all the different ways to describe you being in a dire situation and bravely charging towards an evil enemy. This style of writing pairs well with the relentless speed of the music. We need to move fast and stay alert. There's literally no time to explain. We have evil to fight. That synchronicity paces the song so well that 7 minutes can feel like 2. If there is any greater theme that the song reaches for, it's eternal suffering. Your battle is an ultimate sacrifice that hurts you so much you feel the pain of a lifetime. The listener's suffering, akin to walking through fire, is framed as a noble battle against the world's greatest threat. The later verse suggests that this pain continues for eternity. Phrases like banished to a light beyond the stars suggest a freedom from the mortal plane that aligns with the glorification of a warrior's death. But still the journey continues on, and this misery must go on. If we weren't already suffering through a mythical afterlife, we have now transcended and the fight will now last forever. Yet this is not presented as a hopeless situation, despite the intense, everlasting pain. Instead, you're proud to make this sacrifice to some fantasy messiah because you're a hero and heroes fight evil, and this is who you are and this is what you must do. For 7 minutes of a song, you have a purpose, and it's the most worthy purpose of all. All your continued suffering serves a greater cause that you never need to question. And when the song slows down, it's only for the shortest possible time. These brief reprieves keep the song from feeling the same the whole way through by adding clear, defined landmarks. Narratively, these demonstrate our exhaustion, the long-held notes like much-needed deep breaths. Still, the beginning and the end of these moments feel strongly intentional that there is a sense of control and determination to the rest. After the shortest possible break, the pace kicks back in with a guitar solo or a chorus. We still have a job to do, and there's no time to get complacent. This goes on for eternity, remember? Even in the song's outro, there's no sense of the action drawing to a close. There's no slowing down up to the very last note. Sharp stabs punctuate the outro, and some instruments decidedly drop out. This seems to depict warriors riding off into the distance. There is always a struggle because evil is never defeated permanently, so the energy never drops. It just strides away with purpose. Stories usually have an ending where the worst of the struggle is over and the heroes can reflect on what they've learned, but this is a very different story. This is a story about a force of nature destined to fight forever. An exaggeration of the elements found in rock music. Metal portrays itself much faster, much louder, much harder, and it can bring these qualities to stories of violence. To tell a story of a fight and have it sound enjoyable rather than traumatizing, it needs to be exaggerated, unrealistic, and detached from the real consequences of violence. A hyperbolic genre to tell a hyperbolic story, and that's how metal can so effectively turn a story from horrifying to satisfying. By comparing The Trooper with Through the Fire and the Flames, we can see that the same call to action can be used for different purposes in different contexts. Being a homage to / subversion of war poetry, inspired by the poem Charge of the Light Brigade, the context of The Trooper is specific, grounded, and dark. However, the inevitability of death at the hands of the war machine only empowers the soldiers to charge forward towards their glorious end. Appropriately enough for a British vocalist singing about British soldiers defending Britain, the characters follow the British stereotype of maintaining composure in a crisis. As the audience to this song, we are unflinchingly facing the same reality of life as a warrior. During live performances of this song, Bruce Dickinson waves the Union Jack, invoking the sense of purpose that comes with patriotism. Through the Fire and the Flames is fantastical and vague, inviting you to appreciate the spectacle without giving you the opportunity to consider what's happening. The way its undefined narrative speeds along brings to mind the experience of an adrenaline rush. Energetic but unable to focus. Here you can bask in the aggression, joining an army of powerful heroes on some no doubt worthy but unspecific quest. Accepting the brief moments of rest, no impassable barrier could ever stop you riding victoriously into the sunset forever. Power fantasies can come in many forms, and being an unstoppable force in an impossible scenario is as valid a direction as something more gritty, down to earth, and visceral. There are very few things more annoying than somebody who thinks they're better than you. A rich neighbour telling you about their expensive holiday is annoying. It's like somebody else made up a competition in their head, won it, and now, for some reason, you care about it. What's worse is when they're correct, like a co-worker who repeatedly outperforms you. When you genuinely care about something, like doing a good job or being a good person, who is anyone else to judge your efforts and deem themselves as better? But what I find most heinous of all is someone who I recognize as better than me, but they don't even think about me. There is nothing to be gained in begrudging them because clearly they're not at fault. I can't engage in competition with them because of how much better they are. I have too much pride to seek advice from them. I can't complain to someone else because I don't want to seem jealous, which I am. You know who's the worst offender for acting all superior, being all superior, and being above reproach for it? God. In some religions, there's one God and he is perfect, as an all powerful, all loving being that religion says we are supposed to try to be close to. And inevitably, we fall short because nobody's perfect, by anybody else's standards. What happens when we're less than perfect? Well, we hurt others, we hurt ourselves, we might feel shame. When we care about being a good person, it hurts to consider the ways we fail to be perfect. It feels like, in a strict system of morals that seeks order over kindness, shame is inevitable as a byproduct of the order. And the worst pain comes to those seeking to do the most good. But if it's so deeply in our nature to not be like God, if it feels good to engage in hedonism and rooted deep in our biology that there are rules we want to break, then why feel shame? Surely the wrong we do is just part of who we are, and who is anyone else to tell us we should act otherwise? Who is anyone, even God, to judge us for our sins? Why should we need to seek forgiveness for our nature? Why frown on the inevitable? Why can there not be a creature of myth who doesn't judge us for our misdeeds? If you don't feel like beating down your inner foe to resist the impulsivity and hedonism, well then Avenged Sevenfold would suggest that they have a mascot to cheer you on in your own depraved way. The devil. Let's take a moment to break the ice. What a nice guy. Clearly he doesn't see himself as better than me. He must have spent a long time being told that he deserves to be below everybody else. I mean, we can't fall lower than the devil is, and there he is to greet us at our lowest point. There's no hierarchy that separates us, and all you need to do is ordain to reach down to your humble servant, perhaps? No, to receive his help. He is a straightforward creature, and will tell you honestly what he is thinking. He has nothing to hide, because he doesn't care what you think about him. He has no grand reputation to uphold. There is no sugarcoating as he lays your solemn situation bare to you, and tells you exactly what he thinks and intends. So what kind of creature is speaking to us in Shepherd of Fire, who pities us and wants to help us? He tells us, with no riddles or tricks, he is your pride. Surely this must be one of the lesser sins. If you do something good, you should be allowed to celebrate and feel proud of yourself. Achievement without pride is an endless treadmill of setting high goals and being dissatisfied with your progress until one day your goals become unattainable. With no pride to remind you of how well you've done, you'll only feel like a wretched failure anyway. So, when you decide on your next course of action, and your consciousness is sitting across the negotiating table from God, the devil is there to advocate for your pride. It's a good start. Maybe one day we can bring down the number of sins from 7 to 6, or even 5. And surely the commandments shouldn't be allowed to be double digits. What else is he? He's an agent of wealth and a bearer of needs. Well, along the course of human history, some do-gooder got it into their heads that wanting to have lots of money makes you a bad person. That strikes me as the idea of somebody that's never had to worry about money, or somebody who resents richer people than them and deciding that their current level of wealth is the only acceptable amount. Like it or not, we need money to survive and to contribute to our wellness and our community. And the devil, good bloke that he is, wants you to have lots of money. Everyone has needs to fulfill, from basic survival and physical security to emotional and relational needs. Surely anyone that wants what's best for you would want you to pursue what you need. Go ahead and seek a life of wealth. Pay attention to what you hear the devil say, and you'll fulfill your needs by any means necessary. But what happens if you change your mind, and one day you wake up and decide that life would be more fulfilling if you tried your best to follow a moral code, instead of taking whatever you want however you can. So long, says the devil, no hard feelings, you're welcome back any time. For me, it's never too late. And like a song, you can always come back to listen to him. Your desire for sin won't leave you forever. Your basest desires will always be protected by the shepherd of fire. Most shepherds protect sheep, the innocent little animals that stay together and mindlessly roam the meadow, led around with no freedom or independence. But you are not a sheep. You have less than holy feelings, don't you? Maybe you have rage, a greed, or a lust forbidden by moral society, but nonetheless it burns in you. You have a fire that stands ready to burn down the life you built and leave you in a living hell. Well, that fire will always be there, because there will always be a shepherd to protect it. No need to thank him. Now, I'm going to describe an idea that's nothing to do with metal music for a moment, but it comes back around, so just stay with me. I think there are many songs that could be described as drug-coded because they evoke the experience of taking a certain drug. The easy example is I Am the Walrus by the Beatles. Its constant mellow tone of every aspect, combined with the vivid descriptions of imaginary scenes, aligns with the experience of taking psychedelic drugs. And I'm not trying to assign causality to any of this. I couldn't say that LSD or hippie culture or psychedelic music came before one another or resulted in one another, only that the experience of the music and the drug resemble each other. To give another example, I think swing music is alcohol coded. The rhythm swings consistently offbeat, syncopated. It resembles the way the brains of drunk people always seem a few seconds slower than the world of the sober. You may contradict this with the idea that beer is commonly drunk at rock concerts, and these ideas don't need to be mutually exclusive. There is some nuance depending on the effect that alcohol has on the individual. While beer is a depressant with a relaxing effect, it can trigger the emotional freedom that might manifest itself as an increased energy for some time. And this is an experience that would be more congruous with energetic rock music. And if you wanted to integrate the idea of culture surrounding the music being entwined with its representative drug, you could say swing is cocktail-coded music and some rock music can be beer-coded. I introduced the idea of drug music synchronicity to give some background to the following statement. Dance Kid Dance by Shinedown is an ecstasy-coded song. The lyrics of the first verse portray somebody dealing with some difficult thoughts that leave their mind clouded. They feel distracted, and though they can think clearly, thinking does not seem to help them through their struggle. Clearly, their world does not make sense no matter how hard they try. A few lines in, we get the first hint that the song's protagonist could be a young person, still in school, with the line chalkboard prison being an effective visual metaphor for the place of education, making them feel boxed in. Division is another appropriate word, it being a mathematical concept you learn in school and also describing the process of becoming isolated. The cause of this character feeling lonely at school is confirmed by the end of the verse. The song tells us with certainty, your personality will be rated, and guarantees the existence of a bad impression. The metaphors drop away and we're told the raw, unbearable thoughts that haunt this student with social anxiety. They will be judged by everyone they meet, and the judgments will not be favourable. Even in the song's opening riff before the singing starts, it sounds nervous, uncertainly flitting around, stopping and starting like a unwilling interviewee saying all the wrong things. The pounding of drums are constant here, like dark thoughts that hang on to you and wear away at your will to live, and the drums do not stop their assault until the verse ends and things change. An alternative mindset is suggested. The chorus puts us in a different place, where the autocrat of anxiety holds no sway over our brains. Social skills and phobias no longer bother our main character. What's more, we finally hear them standing up for themselves in Don't Call Me Crazy, That's How They Made Me. Whatever inadequacies they were feeling before, none of that matters to them. Not only that, but those of you who judged them in the past have no right to assign their flaws as their own fault. They want you to know that no matter how troubled their mind becomes, or however much indifferent or hate they feel from other people, or more likely themselves, they're not taking responsibility from that anymore. Anybody put into their situation would have behaved the same, because their whole life has been molded by the authority around them. Maybe they are a bad person, maybe they feel like a bad person, but the problems aren't their fault, they're just theirs to bear. The blame should be shifted onto the adults that built them this way, made them brain sick. but in the chorus it seems like that sickness is cured. The pills will make you dance, but what pills do they mean? And dancing is the last thing you'd expect from the person who was described in the verse, scared and confused by the social pressures driving them crazy. The desire to start dancing can exist in everybody in the presence of music, but fear of being mocked or being ashamed of honest self expression can make dancing impossible. The pills must dissolve these fears and leave the kid taking them uninhibited. Drugs, not music, is the cause of dancing. Drugs do not just enable the dancing as a response to music, they act as a stand in for the music. All the differences between the tone of the verse and the tone of the chorus could point to the kid being relieved of their anxiety without the fear of being seen, with all the thoughts of school fading away and with a rising urge to rebel against the depressing world that they've been living in. This energy culminates just after the chorus, in a heavy, danceable instrumental, similar to the opening riff. The feeling of this instrumental implies a nervous energy with quick, unpredictable rhythms, but the stuttering and the high-pitched whininess of the opening has been replaced with bold, stomping power chords. The kid has been transformed, and the energy that was always there has been set free. The kid can dance. The increased movement and reversal of social anxiety align with the effects of ecstasy. Dance Kid Dance could easily be depicting an adolescent going to a rave and taking ecstasy. From this point in the song, there is another verse where once again the kid is in school. This verse is much shorter because the days don't drag like they did before, because it no longer interests the kid. They're just waiting to get back to their pills and their dancing, waiting to be free again. And freedom does come again in the form of another chorus, but life depicted in the second verse is much more chaotic, like the rebellious energy from the chorus is leaking into the verses and breaking down the order that once existed. Maybe that was inevitable. In music and drugs, a kid finally finds an alternative to the life they hate, trapped in the institutions that raised them and without the maturity to leave the environment that makes them anxious. Who could blame them for indulging in an immature, hedonistic world of partying to finally find a place where they could be happy? In a world where order is only ever seen as a negative power, there's no reason to value it, and a destructive alternative becomes preferable. In a Christian household, somebody who feels abject from doing something shameful might pray to God for forgiveness. They're promised by their religion that their sins can be forgiven, so there is a separation between the person and their actions. You've done something wrong, but you are not wrong. Anybody can atone for their mistakes and try to be better going forward. But what about a culture that's largely atheist or agnostic, where a faithless person, well, where can a faithless person feel forgiven? If they're lucky, they might have someone in their life who's always been there to be forgiving and remind them that they are redeemable no matter what they've done. Such a relentlessly considerate influence is hard to find. Even so, their positive message may be misconstrued as patronizing or accurate, whereas cynicism and negativity are easy emotions to nurture. Perhaps more valid forgiveness could come from a higher authority. Perhaps this authority is someone with proven experience in living and portraying the human condition, like an artist. Perhaps this authority should have many followers, like a celebrity, and this is how people turn to the messages in music for their acceptance. The narrative of Dance Kid Dance is a focused exploration of a single character. The descriptions we get of their life is vague, and it could signify a lack of control, a monotonous experience where every day is the same, or the influence of substance abuse. This is our relatable underdog who we hope can find happiness in a world that's left them behind. Given this context, substance abuse is framed as emotional freedom that can finally allow our hero to express themselves. The obvious message here, the bait that might hook somebody with prejudices against metal music or looking to incite moral panic, is it's encouraging a lifestyle of going to parties and taking random pills. But if we look past this, there are two other more sophisticated implications. Firstly, young people can live in an environment so soul-destroying that taking extreme measures to finally feel in control of their lives is the only natural recourse. If there is a message aimed at all society rather than just those who relate to the story of Dance Kid Dance, it's to make sure the young people around you do not feel trapped and helpless. If you do not want youths looking for moral justification in a song, then be the accepting and supportive influence that they need. Secondly, a message for those who can relate to the story. If you feel like you're a bad person, just remember that Many of the circumstances that led up to this moment were not in your control, and maybe it's the people and the systems around you that have failed. Depending on the circumstance, this may be an unfair assessment, but it nonetheless comforts the listener by denigrating the authority the song is acting as a surrogate for. Fine, says the song. I'll comfort the disaffected youths for you, but they will learn that you are the ones that have failed them. Metal music has a well-earned reputation for centering its culture around youthful rebellion. A loud, angry new sound is blaring, with themes of transgressing taboos, and the prophets of this new art form are disaffected young people. Whether this stereotype remains for metal music today is irrelevant, as the anti-establishment sentiment remains a core part of the metalhead identity. This identity received much criticism, especially in the early days of metal's development, by older people claiming the music would encourage violence, drug abuse, and other harmful behaviour. Rather than metal music expressing an uncomfortable truth that a rebellious subculture exists and needs to express itself, no, metal music is the societal poison that must be cleansed. Metal, ever being the skeptic towards the voice of authority, is well positioned to challenge the character judgments brought by the perception of its artists and its audience. Somebody needs to call attention to the assumption that deviant thoughts make someone a bad person. Is it wrong to question authority? Of course not. Power must be checked to counter corruption. But can authority stand when criticism comes from outside the system they control? Maybe we can see authoritarian tendencies emerge if we see how authority responds to pressure from a domain where they have no power, a platform that doesn't agree to any of their rules. Advocating for change, though it necessitates some chaos, is not the same as advocating for complete anarchy forever. For metal music to change the flawed arguments against it being damaging and unworthy as an art form, a counter-argument must be presented eloquently, in a form that still works as song lyrics, and this is done flawlessly in the song Peace Sells by Megadeth. The lyrics of Peace Sells are directed towards a theoretical critic, presumably some disapproving authority figure who sees themselves as a better person than the vocalist acting as our narrator. The verses repeat a pattern of a negative stereotype of a metal fan, some rebellious young person that disapproving old people might consider to be metal music's primary audience, and then counteracts their statement by sarcastically assuming a contradictory stereotype. For example, what do you mean I don't support your system? I go to court when I have to. This line condenses an argument had by the narrator. The challenge leveled against them is that they do not support the system that upholds society, and thus they must be an enemy of peace who will only make life worse for everybody. This insult defends the status quo, so the figure making the insult presumably benefits from society working exactly as it currently does, and is ignorant of any of the benefits that could be brought about by changing the system. Now our narrator seems to be aware of this ignorance because the insult is responded to with a snarky sarcasm. Of course I support societal systems, says the narrator. The justice courts represent a pillar of our system that we all live in, and I'm clearly an anarchistic criminal. Ergo, by being convicted of my presumably many crimes, I'm taking part in the system exactly as it intends for me. This answer also suggests an inherent unfairness of the judicial system by alleging that no jury or judge could fairly sentence them because they would be making ignorant, uninformed assumptions, self-evident from the fact that the narrator needs to defend themselves at all. The song is full of these cleverly succinct, disingenuous counter-arguments. Another great example is, what do you mean I ain't kind? I'm just not your kind. The allegation of being unkind is met with the contradiction that the accuser is so unlike the narrator that they could never recognize the ways in which they show kindness, or sympathize with the cause of their behavior. For a final example, we have, what do you mean I couldn't be the president? It's still we, the people, right? You may assume a politician to be a certain kind of person, and that the highest position of power must be held by someone old, wealthy, and civil, but surely the beauty of democracy is its pretensions towards equality. According to your precious system, we both get one vote, and we have the same rights. Why are you acting as if I am lesser than you? If the verses consist of our narrator being defensive, the chorus is where they start to make their offensive. If there's a new way, I'd be the first in line, but it better work this time. There is a reason that rebellious subcultures exist, and it's because a section of society feels unfairly treated. When young people feel like a society does them disservice, it can be attributed to their immaturity, and they can be ignored because they lack critical thinking or organization or the political power to promote change. A narrator would love it if they did not need to be rebellious, if they could just trust authority and be hopeful for the future. When a politician, for example, promises a better life if you would only believe them and do what they want you to do, it's only natural to become cynical and jaded when the process fails you. Lacking a position of power and knowledge, it's difficult to tell the difference between a self-serving lie and incompetence to deliver on a promise, but the result always feels the same. The faith of the populace goes to the highest bidder, and the bids are only limited by what political leaders can convince you of. If authority figures keep winning your faith in a bidding war, but fail to pay up after they receive their lot, protest is the natural response. Peace sells, but who's buying? We all want to live in harmony with one another. We don't want to hate each other. If we could feel safe and at peace with our neighbour, we would do anything to achieve it. Even if violence is enacted, hoping that the result will be greater safety. Peace is a seductive ideal. Much like sex, peace sells, but buying into the dream of peace is difficult. We are flawed people. We can easily see that we're surrounded by flawed people. We have reasons to hate, and we feel very strongly if we sense hate in other people. You can try to forgive everyone, but the world is chaotic and nothing can guarantee serenity. Maybe we, by our nature, cannot achieve the lasting peace that we all desire. Our neighbour can hate us because they think we're making society worse, like a menace or a plague. We can feed that perception by wanting to rebel against injustice. Maybe a truly peaceful world is not compatible with humans' distrustful nature. We all want peace, but even if we knew the cost, none of us could afford it. No sacrifice can remove chaos and entropy from our lives. And this is the starting point to understanding those who we disagree with. We're all trying to improve the world, using our best poor judgment, and part of making the better world is understanding that you will be misunderstood. You'll feel mistreated, like you're being insulted for your beliefs and your character. Then maybe the answer, Megadeth says, is not to lash out with threats. Think carefully about who you really are and how you can answer genuinely, even if you can't hide being incredulous. Then, acknowledge that we are all flawed and disagreements are inevitable, but that you are open-minded enough to hear someone else's reservations about you. It may not be the full price of peace, but maybe it's at least enough to be a holding deposit. There is nothing more true than that which resembles life. But since we all have different perspectives, different lives, and moments can't be lived a second time, the true human experience is hard to grasp, isolate, and preserve. Art, usually being slightly more permanent than the present moment, is an attempt to reflect what it is to live. It's only an image, but a snapshot can be studied and tell us much more about the place, time, and people within. Actually, while a fixed piece of art like a painting, a sculpture, or even a poem is like the snapshot of a human experience, a song is more like looking in a mirror. Someone needs to be listening to a song for the experience of the art to exist. It won't stay after everyone forgets about it. And either way, art that can tell us about the truth of life is always transcendent. Whether it's a picture or a mirror, they all have frames. There's always limits to what can be shown. So the choice of what you portray in a piece of art is important, and it makes the content of the artwork precious to you. What in life is worth telling about? What's worth making art about? It's incredibly subjective, and as there are as many answers as there are artists, more. Perhaps there is a slightly less subjective question. What is my medium best at portraying? Of course, great art can emerge from defying convention and tackling new and unusual subjects for a particular medium, but to understand what makes metal unique as a genre, we need to look at the stories it is uniquely suited to tell. Metal is life. Metal is the struggle, the sacrifice, the cold reality of oppression. And when life gets to be too much, metal is the rebellion against order. It's the escapist fantasy, and it's the hedonism, wish fulfillment of worldly pleasures. When rage subsides, metal is the shame, the denial, or the introspection. Listening to metal can help ease the pain of all of these feelings. It can help you embrace your complex emotions with a work of art that can show you empathy. To listen to metal is to face the difficult reality and, when life gets hard, continue to explore the full range of your emotions and emerge from your struggles a more complete person.